Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be walking you through a homemade pine slice recipe. Now this is a sweet treat, almost like a cake filled with a pine jam filling. It is so delicious and I hope you give this recipe a try. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first step of making your pine slice is creating the jam needed to go in between those layers of cake. So what I've done is I've added 2 cups of crushed pineapples to a pot, as well as 1 3/4 cup of brown sugar to warm. I have my stove on low heat and I'm just going to stir that in until it's reached a jam-like consistency. So at this point I've been stirring for about 8 minutes. I've turned up my heat to help speed up the process of turning this into a jam. As you can see, it's gotten a lot more thick than when we first began, which is what you want. It still has to get a whole lot more thick because it has to be sort of like a jam-like consistency. So you're just going to continue stirring. So at this point I've been stirring for about 18 minutes and I've taken it off the heat because it's reached that jam-like consistency that I've been waiting for. It's a beautiful golden brown color and there's some pineapple chunks still in there. Obviously, if you see chunks that are way too big, you can go in with a hand blender or a potato masher and just mash it down so that you don't have those huge ginormous pieces of pineapple chunk. Other than that, the smaller pieces of pineapple chunk in your jam are more than welcome. My mom actually said this is how they used to eat it back home, and this is how she knows pine slice to be and the jam in between to be as well, to have these nice pineapple chunks and also those kind of like those string like those strings that you sometimes see in pineapples or have in that pineapple jam. So that's why I left mine this way. Next thing that I'm going to do is actually pour this out in a bowl and store it in the fridge so that it can cool down. Now the reason that I'm allowing this to cool down is that it's a lot easier to manage this jam and also spread this jam in between the layers of dough when it has cooled down. When it's hot, it's a lot more difficult to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So we're ready to move on to our dough now. As you can see, I've added 4 cups of sifted flour to a bowl. You find when you sift your flour, it becomes a lot softer and fluffier. I'm gonna also grate 2 sticks of butter into my flour. Also, all of the measurements and the ingredients and also links to the brand I am using of these ingredients are going to be in the description box below, so you can go ahead and check that out. Now that I've grated in my 2 sticks of butter, as you can see, it's kind of like almost cheese-like in texture. I'm gonna go ahead and add 1/2 teaspoon of grated nutmeg, as well as 2.5 cups of white sugar. I'm then just gonna go in and use my hands to mix all of these ingredients together. I'm also gonna go ahead and add 4 teaspoons of baking powder and also work that in with my hand as well. So as you can see, at this point, all of my ingredients are nicely mixed in. You don't have any huge clumps of butter anymore, and it's all nicely married together. So we're ready to move on to the next step. So the next step is I've cracked about 4 eggs, and I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of custard powder, as well as 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and whisk those 3 ingredients together. You wanna make sure that there's no clumps in it from the custard powder. Because the custard powder made my mixture so clumpy, I'm just straining it right now to get all of the clumps out. Now at this point, what you wanna do is you wanna bring your flour back and you're gonna go ahead and pour your custard and egg and essence into the bowl where your flour is, and you're going to use your hands to work it in. At this point, I'm going to gradually add in about 2 tablespoons of ice cold water. If you feel like you need to add a bit more water to bring your dough together, then go ahead. You just want to make sure you're not adding too much that it becomes too sticky. However, if this does happen, then you can go ahead and add some flour to your dough and knead it in, because this will help take away that stickiness. Now once you're done kneading, you're going to part your dough into 2 equal pieces and begin rolling it out. If your dough is sticking to your rolling pin, you can add some flour to your rolling pin to help with this. Now once you've reached this thickness, you're going to use your rolling pin to lift your dough up and then place it inside of a square pan. I've greased my pan with some shortening. Now I'm using my hands to spread the dough into all corners of the pan so that no piece of the pan is left uncovered. If you find that there are parts of the dough that might look too thin or that tear as you are spreading it over your pan, you can go ahead and take a piece of dough from your second half and just patch that part up. I'm also going to cut the excess pieces off and use a rolling pin to smooth it out. Now comes the fun part, which is spreading my pineapple jam on top of this layer. Once you're done with your jam, you're going to go ahead and take your second half of the dough and roll it out like you did the first time. It's the exact same process. You're going to use your rolling pin to lift your dough up and lay it down on top of your jam. You're going to remove any excess dough, and you can also use a rolling pin to smooth it out. Now that we're done, at this point, I'm going to pop it in the oven for 45 minutes at 350 degrees. My pine slice is fresh out of the oven and it smells so good. This was definitely a hit in my household and I also loved it as well. I hope you enjoyed this recipe and try it out for yourself. Don't forget to show your support by liking, subscribing, sharing, and leaving all of your comments and questions down below. Don't forget to check out some of my other videos, which I've linked in the description box as well. Thank you guys so much for watching and see you next time.